On July 23, 1958, the set of Rio Bravo became the stage for a moment that would reshape Hollywood's conscience. Dean Martin, John Wayne, and director Howard Hawks were filming one of cinema's most iconic westerns at old Tucson studios under the scorching Arizona sun. The temperature soared past 112 degrees, creating brutal conditions that made the heat unbearable for cast and crew alike. During a crucial bar fight sequence, 30 stunt performers and extras had been hired to populate the saloon. Among them was Tommy Mitchell, a 34-year-old former rodeo competitor who had transitioned to stunt work. With a wife named Sarah and 2 daughters waiting at home in Tucson, Tommy viewed his role in this prestigious production as a potential career milestone. The assignment seemed straightforward. Get hurled through a breakaway window, tumble to the ground, and remain still. The window frame, however, harbored a critical flaw. The construction crew had mistakenly installed a reinforced frame instead of the breakaway variant. What should have shattered instantly remained rigid, catching Tommy mid-flight like an invisible clothesline. His body dropped 12 feet onto packed earth below. The sickening impact left him conscious but severely injured, his arm bent at an unnatural angle, blood streaming down his face, and worse, his legs remained motionless. The production manager, Gerald Foster, embodied the studio system's callous efficiency. His response to Tommy's catastrophic injury revealed the industry's indifference to worker welfare. Remove him from the set, Foster commanded. Transport him to the hospital and locate whoever selected the wrong window frame. They're terminated. The studio's concern extended no further than eliminating the problem from view and continuing production. When the medical team hesitated, explaining Tommy shouldn't be moved without an ambulance, Foster dismissed their objections. We're hemorrhaging money. Every minute cost the studio $10,000. Get him out of here and reset everything. Dean Martin heard every callous word, and something within him shifted irrevocably. He approached Foster with measured calm, his voice deliberately low. Which hospital? Foster barely acknowledged him. Tucson General, I suppose. Why does it matter? Who covers the medical expenses? Foster finally turned to face him fully. Not our responsibility. He signed consent paperwork. These workers understand the dangers. That's the arrangement. Martin pressed further. So Warner Brothers won't cover his hospital costs? Foster's response was definitive. The studio provides on-location medical assistance. Everything beyond that remains the worker's burden. That's standard procedure. Now, if you'll excuse us, we require your cooperation to resume filming. Martin's demeanor transformed in that instant. He removed his costume hat and handed it to a nearby crew member with measured deliberation. Proceed without me, he announced. Foster's face flushed crimson. Excuse me? You heard correctly. I'm not performing another scene until that man's medical bills receive coverage. The entire set froze. Crew members ceased their movements. Wayne emerged from his trailer, observing silently. Hawks abandoned his script. Everyone sensed something significant was unfolding. Foster attempted to defuse the situation through dismissal. Dean, don't be theatrical. He consented to the hazards. This is how the system operates. Martin remained resolute. Not anymore. Foster smiled with contempt. You're contractually obligated. You cannot simply refuse employment. Martin's response was quiet but absolute. Watch me. Foster escalated his intimidation, lowering his voice to a menacing whisper. Leave this set, and you'll never work in this industry again. Warner Brothers will ensure your career ends. Do you comprehend my meaning? Martin didn't flinch. Then my career terminates. But this man won't face financial ruin because your crew made a mistake. The silence that followed was profound. In 1958, actors rarely challenged studios so directly. Studios possessed absolute authority. One telephone call could ensure an actor never worked again. Yet Martin held his ground anyway. Foster deployed his most persuasive argument. You're responsible for halting production, affecting 150 employees. Each day of non-filming means 150 paychecks delayed. Can you really justify that consequence? Martin surveyed the surrounding workers, electricians, cinematographers, makeup specialists, sound technicians, all watching intently. Then he posed a question that transformed everything. How many of you have experienced onset injuries and paid your own medical expenses? Silence enveloped the set. Then gradually, hand began ascending, one by one, then 3, then a dozen. Ultimately, more than half the crew raised their hands, revealing broken bones, concussions, electrical burns, and scaffold falls they personally financed because studios claimed those injuries weren't their liability. Martin redirected his attention to Foster. So Tommy isn't alone. Every individual on this set has been harmed and discarded. That's simply acceptable practice. Foster's expression hardened. This is commerce, not humanitarian work. Martin's ultimatum hung in the air like acrid smoke. Either Warner Brothers covers every cent of Tommy Mitchell's medical expenses, surgery, rehabilitation, lost income, everything, or I depart. And I take this narrative with me. I'll communicate to every Los Angeles reporter precisely why Rio Bravo ceased production. How a man became disabled because your department selected the incorrect window frame, and the studio declined responsibility. In 1958, studios controlled public perception absolutely. But Dean Martin threatening media disclosure represented genuine danger, the kind that could generate scandals costing the studio millions in reputational harm. Foster's complexion transformed from red to purple. You lack that authority. That's when Wayne stepped forward. The legendary actor had observed everything silently. Now he positioned himself beside Martin without uttering a word, his presence conveying an unmistakable message of solidarity. Hawks joined them immediately. The cinematographer followed, then the stunt coordinator. Key production members formed a silent wall of unity around Martin, their bodies communicating what words couldn't express. Foster found himself surrounded and outmaneuvered. Should Martin depart, the entire picture would collapse. Should Wayne join him, Warner Brothers would forfeit their entire investment. Public exposure regarding mistreatment of injured workers would prove catastrophic. Foster excused himself to make a telephone call. Martin waited, arms crossed, motionless. The crew didn't reset the scene. Nobody moved. Production remained frozen while thousands of dollars accumulated as waste, yet nobody cared. Something transcended financial considerations. 20 minutes later, Foster returned, his expression carefully neutral. Warner Brothers will assume complete responsibility for Mr. Mitchell's medical expenses, and we're reassessing our insurance coverage for the whole crew. Martin didn't celebrate. He simply nodded. I require written documentation today. You'll possess it by business closure. Also, I need confirmation of Tommy's medical condition before we film another moment. Foster hesitated, then acquiesced. Understood. Martin addressed the assembled crew. Does anyone wish to continue under these parameters? Speak now. Because if we're proceeding, we're doing it properly. Nobody else experiences injury and abandonment. Silence answered him, not because nobody responded, but because the answer already showed plainly on every face. Hawks cleared his throat. We'll pause for the remainder today. Everyone requires time to recover emotionally. We'll resume tomorrow. As workers dispersed, Wayne pulled Martin aside. That represented extraordinary bravery. Comprehend that you've established yourself as a target. The studios won't overlook this. Martin responded with a shrug. Then they'll remember. I'm exhausted from pretending ignorance. Wayne regarded him thoughtfully, then extended his hand. You're exceptional, Martin. Genuinely exceptional. That evening, Martin visited Tucson General Hospital. Mitchell was undergoing surgery while his wife, Sarah, sat in the waiting area, panic-stricken, holding medical estimates that threatened her family's financial devastation. Martin sat beside her. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Dean Martin. I witnessed your husband's accident. Sarah looked up, eyes swollen from crying. Will he recover? The physicians are implementing all available treatments, but you require information. Warner Brothers is financing everything, every element. Surgery, rehabilitation, compensation for lost earnings. Financial anxiety is unnecessary. Sarah stared incredulously. What? How is that possible? Because your husband's injury wasn't his fault, and your family shouldn't endure economic consequences for a mistake beyond his control. Sarah collapsed into tears. Not from dread, but from gratitude. Martin remained with her through Tommy's surgery completion. 3 hours in an uncomfortable plastic seat, consuming poor-quality coffee. Simply being present. Nobody else from production appeared. Tommy Mitchell survived, though his arm never regained complete functionality. His spine healed sufficiently for walking, though with a permanent limp. He abandoned stunt performance forever. Warner Brothers covered his $18,000 medical bill completely and hired him 6 months later as a stunt coordinator, a position leveraging his expertise without endangering his body further. Rio Bravo resumed filming the following morning. Martin participated quietly, altered by recent events. Wayne observed him differently now, with admiration, almost reverence. The crew demonstrated complete dedication. They hadn't committed to following a celebrity. They committed to someone who prioritized principle over personal advancement. Studio retaliation emerged swiftly. 3 consecutive film opportunities vanished mysteriously. Projects with Martin's attachment suddenly shifted to different actors. The blacklist functioned precisely as threatened. However, Martin possessed unexpected protection. Wayne's steadfast loyalty remained. Hawks disseminated the true account throughout Hollywood society. The crew circulated the narrative. Within 6 months, Martin's conduct on the Rio Bravo set had transformed into Hollywood mythology. Not newspaper headlines the studio suppressed, but legend among those who created movies. Grips, electrical technicians, stunt coordinators, and minor players spoke Martin's name with reverence. He transcended stardom to become something more significant, a hero. By 1959, the Screen Actors Guild implemented fresh insurance requirements mandating comprehensive worker protection for all performers, including minor and stunt participants. This consequential modification stemmed directly from Martin's stand. He never publicized his contribution, yet everyone recognized his influence. Tommy Mitchell maintained contact with Martin throughout both their lives. Every December, Martin received holiday cards from Tommy, Sarah, and their daughters. Each December, Martin responded with telephone calls. These connections remained private. No photographers, no publicity apparatus, merely authentic human connection rooted in genuine compassion. When Martin died in 1995, Tommy attended the funeral at 71 years old, walking with a cane, his arm still displaying slight deformity from that Arizona scorching. A journalist approached him. "What significance did Dean Martin hold for you?" Tommy reflected momentarily. "Dean Martin didn't simply save me that day on the set. He preserved my entire existence. He demonstrated that powerlessness results from acceptance, not circumstance. He illustrated that principled stands matter beyond career security." The journalist persisted. However, he possessed celebrity status. Risk came easily for him. Tommy shook his head firmly. That assessment misses the point. Everything hung in the balance that day. He gambled his entire professional future for someone unknown to him, a man without consequence to anyone except his family. That transcends celebrity behavior. That exemplifies moral integrity. Dean Martin possessed genuine goodness. The film Rio Bravo maintains its reputation as a masterpiece. Iconic Western cinematography, Wayne's commanding performance, Hawks' directorial brilliance, and Martin demonstrating acting capabilities beyond entertainment singing. These qualities endure. However, the authentic narrative exists beneath the surface. The cameras never capture the transformative moment occurring behind the scenes, when someone wielding influence elected ethics over financial gain. Martin terminated production on July 23, 1958. He endangered his career trajectory, his social standing, his professional prospects. He confronted corporate authority and persisted unwavering. He accomplished this benefiting someone unfamiliar to him, a performer named Tommy who stumbled catastrophically and whose existence would have fractured under medical debt without intervention. This transcends entertainment narrative. It provides instruction for ethical existence. It demonstrates that achievement and prosperity signify nothing without utilizing them for protecting vulnerable populations. Martin wasn't an activist or revolutionary. He represented someone observing injustice and declining to feign blindness. Rio Bravo generated tremendous artistic accomplishment, But authentic heroism transpired beyond cameras. A singular moment when Martin selected conscience over personal profit, selected another security over professional advancement. He articulated, "Not under my supervision," and meant it completely. The production crew present that afternoon never forgot. They narrated the account to their offspring, their grandchildren. The tale propagated throughout the entertainment industry like wildfire, not through journalistic channel studios controlled, but through working communities where human decency surpassed fame's importance. Martin participated in numerous films. He performed countless musical pieces. He generated emotional responses in millions. Yet on July 23, 1958, underneath brutal desert conditions on a film set that nearly extinguished a man's life, Martin accomplished something transcending entertainment production. He resisted. He vocalized dissent. He prevented the machinery from destroying another individual. This represents the Dean Martin account deserving transmission. Not the composed performer with sophisticated style, not the Rat Pack vocalist with effortless attraction, but the individual who halted production declaring, "Correct the situation or I withdraw." The individual who gambled everything for a stranger, because that embodies genuine character, not merely bravery.